Let's have a conversation about something that I hear almost every week when I'm engaged in social conversations and the subject of real estate comes up. Sounds like this. But first, what's going on, everybody out there in real estate land, Central Florida, Orlando? I'm Daryl Dezek, your realtor. And if you're listening to us, watching us across the nation, this is a little peek inside the Central Florida market. Here we have conversations, not just raw data, but I like to share some insights to give you different perspectives so you can do what's best for you and your family, because clarity always brings best decisions. So we're going to take a moment, and the phrase I want to share with you today is this, and I hear this quite often: I'm just going to wait until rates drop. Now, that sounds reasonable. That sounds patient. That sounds disciplined. But there's something that most buyers misunderstand about that strategy. And it's not what the headlines are telling you, my friends. So let's slow this down. First of all, there's an assumption behind that phrase. And the assumption sounds like this: when rates drop, homes will be cheaper and my payment will be better. Right? That's the underlying assumption. And of course, that feels logical. But historically, when we look back at how the market works, right, at people's behavior, because people are the market, right? So we say that's not how it works. When rates drop meaningfully, demand increases quickly. When rates drop meaningfully, demand increases quickly. Hence 2021, 2022. We saw historic, unprecedented rate drop, and guess what happened? Demand for housing increased. Well, the law of supply and demand says, and when demand increases faster than supply, prices don't fall, my friends. They go up, 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 up. That's what happens. They will either stabilize or they will rise. And in our case, they rose very, very fast. And that's not an opinion. That's just now is the time of this video. It's looking back in history. That's just the math. That's what we've seen. So let's look at some of the data that we have here. According to Freddie Mac, the average 30-year fixed rate peaked near about 8%. Again, these are 8%, and consult your mortgage professional for exact data. I like to give you roundabouts for the sake of this conversation. In late 2023, and it has recently been hovering about the mid 6% range in 2025. Now, as of 2026, third week of February, we have now come about 6% and slightly under. So let's look what happens. The National Association of Realtors, says that the national median home prices have remained near record highs. Right? It has not collapsed. Record highs. The median prices. So it's sitting between $390,000 and $400,000. It's that range over the past year. So what does that mean? Let's translate that into real estate speak, real estate knowledge, so you can become an educated real estate person and know something about this. So when you purchase or sell, you can maximize your money and your time. Translation is that rates rose sharply, but prices did not collapse. All right, rates rose sharply, but prices did not collapse. Why? Got one word for you: inventory. Right? Inventory stayed tight. Inventory stayed tight. So it kept the prices up. As the time of this video, we are starting to see in this market inventory coming onto the market. It's not flooding the market, right? It's dripping into the market. And that drip is now felt, and buyers are having a little bit more choices. So as of the time of this video, prices are about 6%, little under 6% interest rates, and we have more inventory on the market, and houses are sitting just a little bit longer. That is good for buyers, right? It gives you more choices, gives you more options. So anyway, let's look at some local statistics and see what the Florida realtors say about this whole thing. Is that statewide inventory has improved compared to the 2022 lows. So we're in 2026, so 4 years later, 48 months. It has improved, but remains below long-term balanced levels. So with a long-term horizon, it's still below. Median prices in Florida are still holding in the mid 400s, depending on the property type. So in the Orlando area, the Orlando Regional Realtor Association, ORA, of which I do belong, inventory has risen year over year. Days on the market have gotten a little bit longer, and the median price is hovering in the mid 370s to 380,000 range. What does that tell us? It tells us that we are not in a cycle crash. We are in a normalization cycle. Right? So this price is coming down. It's not a crash. We're going to normalize. That's it. So let's look at our payment reality. What does that mean for the person who's actually making the payment here? And this is what most buyers miss. They say if rates drop from 6.75% to 5.75%, two things usually happen. One, your payment improves, and two, more buyers re-enter the market. So that's just dropping one full percentage point. I mean, of course, this is not what the percentage is today, but using this as an example. And the second point that matters is this. If 5 buyers are competing today for a property, you got 5 competing for one property, when you drop that interest rate, more buyers are coming in to compete for that property. Go back to 2021, 2022. And the second point really matters because if 5 buyers are competing and when rates drop, you have 15 and sellers respond to demand. So the question isn't just, will rates drop? The better question is, what will prices do when rates drop? So the first question we have, I'm going to go back up. The first question is, I'm just going to wait, or the statement was, I'm just going to wait until prices drop. The question you have to ask yourself is, what will prices do when the interest rates do drop? And a lot of people miss that thought process on it. So it's a good thing to evaluate. So let's ask ourselves this. Waiting is not wrong. Right? I'm not telling you don't wait, get off the sidelines, but I love, and when you do, I know you're going to call me. I thank you, appreciate that, right? Of course. Why not? Why would you want to settle for second best? But the reality is this, waiting is not wrong. But waiting without a framework is risky. And instead of asking, should I wait, ask yourself these 3 questions. Number 1, if rates drop 1%, what happens to competition? If mortgage rates drop 1%, what happens to competition? Number 2, if I buy now and refinance later, what is the cost? So if I purchase now and then refinance to a lower rate, what's the cost? And number 3, what is my rent doing over the next 12 to 24 months? Number 1, if it drops 1%, what happens to the competition? Number 2, if I buy now and refinance later, what's the cost? And number 3, what is my rent doing over the next 12 to 24 months? Sometimes the math does favor the waiting. Sometimes it does. But headlines, the national media, all those propaganda outlets, right? They don't calculate your personal situation. Only numbers can do that. Only your numbers will do it. So let's look at I'm going to give you a little real world example, right? Let's use an Orlando example. A $380,000 home at 6.75% interest with 10% down. Again, interest rates are not what they are today. They're lower, but we're going to use 6.75% for the sake of this conversation. All right, your approximate payment, principal and interest only, is around $2,200 to $2,300. That's it. But if the rates drop to 5.75%, your payment roughly drops $200 to $250. Helpful. But if prices rise even 4% because demands return, well, that same house becomes about $395,000, and now your savings shrinks pretty darn fast. Think about that. It's not about pressure. It's just about perspective. Not about pressure. It's about perspective, my friends. So most buyers are not wrong for waiting. They're not wrong, but they're just waiting emotionally. And an emotional waiting impacts our life because it feels safe, right? Oh, I feel safe because I'm waiting in the market. I'm waiting for the rates to drop. It feels safe, but it's not strategic. Clarity is strategic. You don't need to predict the market. I can't predict the market. You don't need to predict the market. But what you do need to do is to understand the math. So, if you are sitting on the sideline because of the rates, that might be a wise move. But don't let the national headlines make that decision for you. You make that decision. You do the numbers and let the numbers help you and inform your decision. Slow down. Slow down for that clarity because slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And if you ever need to talk it through with someone, your specific scenario, hey, I'm easy to reach.